Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first part of our three-part business startup webinar series. This one is the first steps for starting your small business. It's a general overview of the first steps, and we'll go over a little bit in about the business plan and the cash flows, which we will go into much more detail next week. My name is Nick Rudolph, and I'm the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises. We are a nonprofit CDFI, which is known as a community development financial institution. And a lot of people, what they like to think of us as is a nonprofit bank. And that is a good way to think about it as far as loans are concerned. We are an SBA intermediary lender, and we offer loans to small businesses in our service area. Our service area is the eastern shore of Maryland. And then on the western shore, we've got Cecil County, Harford County, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore City. We started back in 1998 doing small loans on the lower eastern shore and just grew from there, developed that relationship with the SBA, and crossed over the bridge in 2012. In 2020, we became a women's business center, which means we can offer additional services to women-owned businesses. And it's also good to know that we offer free counseling, either one-on-one in sessions like this, classroom trainings for small businesses, whether or not you apply for a loan. So we're here to help you wherever you are on your business journey stage. To find out more about us and to learn and to sign up for one-on-one counseling, go to marylandcapital.org. To sign up, there's a Get Started Here button in the top right-hand corner. And to find out more about the Women's Business Center, check out www.womensbusinesscenter at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. Sorry, a little bit of a tech problem there. All righty. So, we are an SBA lender, but that does not mean that we give out SBA loans. In fact, the SBA very rarely gives out their own loans, generally only in the times of disaster. What we are is an intermediary lender, which means that they back our loans. So we're able to take on riskier loans than a bank, and we're able to also take up startups, which some banks are trepidatious to do. We get our funds from other government agencies, from private foundations, and from banks. Again, whether or not you're applying for a loan, you can take advantage of all of our free business services. So now we're going to get started into the first steps of starting your new business. As I said before, if we got a small group, so if you've got questions, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. So before we get into it, I like to think about a small business the same way you might think about a building. So when you see thinking about downtown Baltimore, there might be a fence with a picture of a beautiful skyscraper that's going to go up. And then that empty lot is just sitting there for 12 months or 18 months. And then all of a sudden construction starts, and 6 or 9 months later, it's fully built and it's bustling. Well, during those 12 to 18 months, they weren't just doing nothing. What they were doing is they were building a foundation for the building. And that means both physically and getting the research done. So this is where you're doing your environmental studies, making sure you understand what conduits are underneath of the building. Well, it's the same thing with your business. The more time you spend planning and the more time you spend building that foundation, the easier and quicker it's going to be to build that strong business when the time comes. And what that's going to take is a lot of planning. It's going to take creativity, and it's going to take a hard work. Every once in a while, we get a call that says, I'm working too hard for my boss. I don't want to work as hard. I want to start my own business. That's not going to work. Starting your own business is hard work. It's rewarding work. It's completely worth it, but it is hard work, and it's going to take up a lot of your time. But there's lots of great reasons why you might want to start a business. Of course, to make money, especially to make money, it's something that you're good at or something that you're interested in. It's a way to turn your hobby to income. It's a way to be your own boss. Once you're established, you're probably going to be able to get some pretty flexible work hours, and you can develop another career. Oftentimes, people are starting a small business in addition to their full-time job. Now, here's the scary slide. It is true that a lot of small businesses are not successful. And after 10 years, 80% of new businesses are closed. But it's not as scary as it looks. A lot of businesses close for positive reasons. Folks retire, the problem that they set out to solve is solved, Or they're serial entrepreneurs. You've got all these chefs out there that are opening up a restaurant. All of a sudden, they want to change concepts, so they close the restaurant and open a new one. So while it is risky, it's not quite as risky as some of the statistics show. So now we're going to go over some questions to think about before starting your own business. And these are things that, if you can answer all these questions yourself, you're probably ready to get started. So the first thing is, why are you starting the small business? And it's not like there's a wrong or a right answer here, but you really want to understand what your motivation is, because if you understand, what is motivating you, you're going to be able to focus on that so you can get that hard work done. You also want to think about what kind of business do you want? And that doesn't just mean what field are you in? It means, do you want to have a retail establishment, or are you looking to do something that's more work from home or online? Then, who is your ideal customer? That's one thing that's very important. Most businesses can serve just about anybody in the world, but if you can drill down and figure out who your number one customer is, if you can get this demographic in, your business is going to be successful. Then you can have a better chance of getting being successful. So think about it this way: if you're opening up a salon in downtown Baltimore, you might want to look around at the buildings nearby and see what the demographics of the employees who work downtown are. So you might decide, look, I'm going to open up this salon that's going to serve everybody, but I'm going to target my advertising to African American women between the ages of 35 and 65 who make more than $85,000 a year. Because there's a ton of those people right around you. Those people use your services, and if you can get them in your door, you're going to be successful. Then you want to think about your products and your services. You want to make sure that you're going to be able to have access to your products. You're going to be able to deliver your services, and you're going to be able to make a profit on those. Then you need to think about times. When you're starting a business, it's going to leave less time for your current work, for your family, and for your hobbies. Also, as you're starting your business, you might not be making as much money as you did before, so you might want to have a savings as well. Then you want to see what differentiates you from the rest of the market. There's competition for everybody, but you want to figure out where you fit in and what your special sauce is. Again, where is your business located? If you are going to be brick and mortar, are you going to be at a place with a parking lot, or are you going to be, on a main street with parking meters? That matters depending on the type of business you have. If you've got a grocery store, you definitely want parking. Then you want to think about if you'll have employees, and if you will, how many will you need? And will they be, W-9 employees or contractors that you're working with? Then if you're selling products or you're doing services that require supplies, who are your suppliers and how can you develop a relationship with them now so that when you need to purchase things, they already know who you are and you might be able to get a little bit of credit. Then you want to figure out how much money you need to get started. Those relationships with your suppliers are the first step, but then you want to start looking at rent if you're going to be brick and mortar, what the different licenses in your locality are going to cost, and in general, what's the cost of you doing your business. If you need a loan, you need to figure out whether you can get a loan. Banks and CDFIs are out here for you. And, we try to make it a little bit easier, but there are some folks who are unable to get a loan, whether it's because of credit issues, or a bankruptcy in the last 24 months. You might not be able to get a loan right away. And then how long will it take before your products and services are available? These loans generally start getting paid back 30 days to 45 days after you get the loan. Oftentimes, it takes significantly longer than that to get your business started. So, how are you going to be able to make those payments as you're growing your business before you're bringing in income? Then you want to figure out your break even. How long and how much do you need to sell before you can start making a profit? When can you pay your employees, all of your bills, and start paying yourself? Then you want to again figure out that competition. And you really want to study what they do well. If there's somebody who's been doing what you're doing for 25 years in your locality, go check them out and see what they're doing well, and then figure out what niche you can slide into to compete with them. Then you want to talk about your price. Are you going to be high end? Are you going to be middle of the road? Are you going to be a value proposition? And next, you're going to think about the legal structure of your business. An LLC might take away some of the personal risk, but there might be other designations that might be a little bit more flexible depending on your business type. Also want to understand your taxes and understand that it's not just a once a year thing. There are many quarterly fees and taxes that you're going to have to pay. You want to understand your insurance. So all small businesses need at least general liability insurance. But as soon as you start adding things like foods or animals or children or transportation or medicine, those numbers can start to rise. And then how will you manage the business? Is this something that you're good at, that you're going to be hands-on day to day, or are you going to be hiring somebody to manage your business? And then lastly, how are you going to advertise your business? If you build it, they won't come unless they know about it. So you want to figure out, are you the type of business that needs to do traditional advertising, social media advertising, or are you the type of business that your marketing is more one-on-one? Are you visiting hospitals and doctors' offices to get referrals to your assisted living facility? Or do you need to be going to national conferences because you're going after big contracts? So then these are the 10 steps to starting a small business. But before I go into that, are there any questions about the 20 questions? Alrighty. So a good thing to know about these 10 steps is that even though they are in an order and they are numbered, none of them are more important than another one, and the order you do them in is not necessarily important. So the first thing you want to do is exactly what you're doing now. Get business assistance and training. At the end of my presentation, I'm going to show you a list of a lot of other places that give free small business assistance and trainings. Talk to all of us. We work in a great ecosystem. We are not competitors, we are collaborators, and we all have different experiences. We're all offering services for free. So talk to us all, figure out, who you feel most comfortable with and keep working with those people. Then you need to have a thorough business plan. A thorough business plan does not need 20 pages. It doesn't even necessarily mean 10 pages. What you want to be able to do is get across who you are, what your business is, when you plan to open, what you are looking for from the reader, and then a few other small details, which we will be going into in great detail in the next session. You want to understand, if you're an employer, what your responsibilities are. When are you paying taxes? What is your workman's comp insurance? It's more than just paying for the employee. Fourth, choosing that business location. As I said before, if you are retail, that you're going to have a brick and mortar, you're going to really want to make sure you're opening in a place where your customers can get to you. Again, that legal structure, figuring out what you want to do. Then you want to register your business. And the way you do that is, first you go to the IRS and get your EIN number, also known as a federal ID on some applications. Then you go to the state website and register your business, either as an LLC, as a corporation. And when you're doing that, you want to think about your business name. Are you just opening up one business right now so you can call it something like Nick's Dill Pickles? Or are you going to be starting with just one thing, but possibly opening up more businesses under an umbrella? So maybe it's Nick Foods LLC, DBA, doing business as Nick's Dill Pickles, so that I can also open up an ice cream operation in 10 years when I'm ready. Then you want to register, make sure you're set up to pay your taxes and you understand when they are. Then you want to talk to your locality, and that's your municipality or your county, to figure out what licenses and permits you need, and what type of inspections you need if you're in a brick and mortar before you can open. You want to think about your business financing, and then you want to develop that marketing plan, which is more than just advertising. It's really about where you fit in the market, and what drives your business. We'll be going into a little bit more detail on that in just a few minutes. So when you understand your market, you're going to be reducing your business risks. You're going to be able to figure out where there is room in the marketplace for you. You're going to be able to understand trends that are coming up, so that maybe you can prepare for something and get a little bit more money from something that's coming down the pike. And that's identifying sales opportunities. And then it's good citations for your business plan. If you're going to be asking for money, people are going to want to see data. And if you understand your market and you can find that data, that's going to help you get closer to a yes. And the way that you do that is just a basic Google search. Google your industry and your location. Find some industry publications or government websites, or even talk to your Chamber of Commerce and pull out quotes that are showing that your industry is growing, specifically, if possible, in your location. And what that's going to be able to do is, it's really going to give folks the confidence that there is room for you in the market. Now, when you start a business, there are advantages and disadvantages. So I do like to go over those. First of all, there's the pro is that you're your own boss, but just because you're the boss doesn't mean you're not going to be working long hours. You can't be fired, but no matter how you register your business, you're going to be in some kind of financial risk. Your income is often determined by your efforts, but you might not be able to have income for the first few months or even year of your business. You also may need additional training or education or hours on the job before you can start doing what you do privately. You are doing what you love, but you're going to have a lot of trouble finding time for yourself, and you're probably not going to be taking vacations in the first year or two. You are helping other people's lives and families by giving them jobs, by giving them local services. But even though you don't have a boss, every employee and every customer is your boss. So you really do have a lot of tiny bosses. Now, oftentimes, I'm sure you've heard me say I talk about loans and not grants. And that's because for-profit small businesses, there just aren't a lot of grants available unless you're a brick and mortar. Sometimes municipalities or counties have what's called facade improvement grants, which will pay for your portion of your signage, your lighting, your security cameras on the outside, your ADA accessibility ramps, and things like that. But if you are in one of these business types or one of these demographics, there are sometimes additional services or grants available. And the best way to find those is to talk to organizations like us and to check out the State Department of Commerce or the department that would handle your business. So if you have an assisted living facility, the Department of Aging would be a place to check out where there may be some grants or forgivable loans available. So, what are the keys to success to start your small business? First, what is your experience in the industry? Why are people going to trust you to be the expert that they pay for you that product or service? What business management experience do you have? And that doesn't necessarily need to be in industry, but have you ever had to manage employees before? Even if it means, as a shift leader at Taco Bell in high school, you've got that experience you can draw on. Then you want to figure out if you can effectively recognize and improvise to solve problems. No matter how much you plan, I've opened up a number of restaurants and we have planned for everything that could possibly go wrong. And then on the friends and family night, the very first night, a pipe bursts in the ceiling and floods the kitchens. So how are you gonna, if something that you could not plan for happens, how are you going to solve those problems? And a lot of folks, what they do is they actually take comedy improv classes just to flex that muscle in their brain. And then if you don't have enough skills or you need more skills, how are you going to get those? Are you going to have an education? Are you going to have a mentor, an apprenticeship, something like that? Are you going to be a subcontractor on larger contracts until you figure out how to become the lead? What are you going to do to have that? So, when you are starting the business, these are a few things that you really, really want to make sure you have before you open your doors. First, you want to check your local zoning requirements because if you're not allowed to have that business type where you are and you've already done the work, they're going to make you move and you're going to lose that money. Same thing with licensing. You might need a different type of license to open up a salon in one county than another. So, you want to make sure that you're getting everything right. You also, if you're going to be looking for financing or a lease, want to look at your credit, and that does mean your personal credit. So understand where your credit is, and if there are issues on your credit, be upfront with your lender or your landlord, because if they know about it ahead of time, they can work to mitigate it. But if they don't, and it's a surprise when they pull the credit, oftentimes that means the conversation stops. And then the last thing is your bail team. And what your bail team is four folks that you want to have in your back pocket, not on your payroll, but in your back pocket so that you have access to them when you need them. The first is your banker. You are going to need to have a business bank account at a bank or a credit union. And every single one of those is going to have a business relations manager in the branch. So ask to talk to those people before you ever need to. Develop that relationship. Say, hey, look, I'm trying to open up a cupcake food truck in Baltimore in the next year or two. What advice do you have for me? You know, they will give you all the advice in the world. They sometimes have training classes for you because they want to develop that relationship with you so that when you need a loan, you'll come to them. But you want to develop that relationship with them so they know who you are and they care about you. Because when they hand that application to the underwriting team, if they care about you, they're going to say, hey, this person's really, really on it. And I think that you should give this one a really good look because I think that it's a loan worth funding. That can mean a lot to an underwriter. So that relationship is more important than just the money. It's really a personal relationship. Speaking of money, you want to have some sort of a relationship with business accountants. So if you join your chamber, you'll probably meet a few. But the reason why is because you are eventually going to need to hire some of these folks. And the reason why is because they're going to be ensuring that you're in compliance with deadlines for state and federal taxes. And they're going to give you some protection if you're audited. They're going to understand what your needs are, especially as you're starting your business, because you get in the weeds and it's easy to miss deadlines. Your insurance agent, again, often, if you can, before you start your business, talk to a couple of different insurance agents, tell them what your business is, and see what type of insurances they tell you you need. And then figure out from that which ones you actually do and who you want to work with so that when you do open, you can get insurance from somebody you trust. Same thing with the lawyer. You don't need to have one on retainer, but talk to your lawyers around town that work with small businesses. See who do a vibe check. See who you think you'd work well with. So in case you do need them, you know where to go, and you know how much money you're going to need. So we are going to go into a brief, very brief discussion of the business plan and the cash flows because next week is going to be 100% on those. But before that, are there any basic questions about the keys to starting your small business? Okay. We are going to go ahead and keep going then and talk a little bit about the business plan. So, what is a business plan and what should it contain? So, going back to my building analogy, the business plan is the blueprint for your business. And what that really means is, as you're going through and starting your business, you're going to get to a point where you're overwhelmed. And being able to look at that blueprint, to open up that business plan and say, this is where I am, and this is what I said I was going to do next, is going to really help ground you. Um, and it's also something that you're going to need in case you ever want a loan or a grant. So when you write it, you want to consider your audience. Think of it sort of as a resume. So you might have it set up, in one way, but move things around depending on the job you're applying for. Same thing with the business plan. If you're applying for a grant, you might want to move the stuff about how you're hiring locally and all the great stuff for your community a little higher up, as opposed to if you're doing for a bank loan, you want to, explain to them how you're going to be able to pay them back and really focus on that. So these are the four parts of a business plan. It is very important to know that you can tell your story better than we can. So if it doesn't look exactly like this, if the sections are titled differently, if you break them up differently, that is okay. Most small business plans are between 3 and 7 pages, sometimes a little bit more, especially if there's pictures and charts. Definitely don't want to have it less than that. So the first thing you want is your executive summary. It's good to write this last because you can pull from the rest of the business plan. But really what you're doing is you're setting the folks up. So you're letting them know who you are, what your passion is, what you do, and what you need from them. The next section is the marketing plan, which is way, way more than just how you're going to advertise. This is where you're going to talk about your market research and show that there's room in the market for you. It's where you're going to discuss your pricing policy, your competition, and your customer base. And then you're going to talk about your strategy for advertising. The next is the operations and organization. This is often smaller than most people think. This is where you're going to be talking about just how you're going to operate if it's brick and mortar or home based, your legal form, your management structure, and importantly, your contingency plan. What happens if you can't work for 6 weeks or 6 months? How is your business going to thrive? And then lastly, your financial plan. And so that includes your startup costs or your costs for whatever your next step in the business is, your break-even points, if you're an existing business, how you've been doing. And if you're going for a loan and you have credit issues, it's a good place to discuss your credit. The next thing are the cash flow projections. And what they really are is a document that's showing you how much money you think is going to come in and how much money you think is going to you're going to spend so that you can figure out if your business is going to be profitable. And you really need them for a number of reasons. Number one, and this should be number one, is it's just good governance. If you understand where you thought you were going to be, you can compare it to where you currently are, and then make educated decisions about where to go next. What's also required for most loans and grants. It's a great planning tool. It shows you when you can start taking money out of the business and the difference between cash coming in and profit. If you're pulling in $1 million a week and it's costing you $1.5 million to do the work, even though you're bringing in a ton of money, you don't have a successful business. So it's a good thing to know about the cash flow projections that, it's a scary document here on the right-hand side, but really it's a living document. It's just a snapshot of where you think you're going to be. It's a way for you to really figure out in your mind what all of your income streams are and what all of your expenses are going to be, so that you can figure out the best way to plan your business so there's no surprise costs, and then also grow your business so you can see if you're hitting benchmarks. Um, so we're going to go into much, much more detail next week on the cash flow projections. We're actually going to fill out an entire cash flow projections for a fictional business, so that you can see what it looks like going through all of these cells and see that it's really a lot easier than it looks. The next part is you've got your business plan, you've got your cash flows, and you're ready to apply for a loan. So our third series in the series is going to be Let's Talk Funding. On that, we're going to have folks from a bank, and folks from non-traditional lender to talk about, how to apply for loans there, what the loans look like, and then have a panel session for Q&A from the audience. But this is what we do. So our loans for a new business, which means anybody 2 years old or newer, is up to $35,000. And then if you're older than that, up to $150,000. The term is going to be based on the length of the loan. So if you're going for 50,000, it might be 6 or 7 years. If it's anything over 100, it will be 10 years. While the rates are set at 6 to 12%, most of these are going out at 7, 8, and 9%. We do require collateral for these loans, and anybody who owns 20% or more of the business is going to have to personally guarantee the loan. There is an application fee. It's $100 plus $25 credit report fee per owner who owns 20%. We only pull TransUnion and we only do soft pulls. Thinking positively, if it's a yes, we do have some closing costs. Generally a $50,000 loan is going to go out at about $48,250. We do take automatic payments on either the 1st or the 15th of the month for your loan, and you can decide that. We don't have any prepayment penalties, so that means as long as your loan is 30 days old, you can pay it off for the principal balance. On the other hand, if you are having a little bit of difficulty and you know you're not going to be able to make a loan payment, if you let us know a week ahead of time, we will figure something out. We can go to interest only, we can defer a payment, and we can even restructure the loan. We want to be only reporting positively to the credit bureaus for folks, so we really want to work with you. We'll visit you twice a year throughout the term of the loan. That can be in person or virtual, especially for those home-based businesses. We're going to want to look a little bit about your books, talk to you about how your business is going, and let you know about resources that we have, generally free resources. As far as what types of businesses and what types of uses you can have, really most small businesses in Maryland are eligible, other than the traditional sin industry, adult bookstores, 100% alcohol, 100% tobacco. However, we are able to work with both medical and recreational cannabis. If you are in, property investment, we can't purchase or rehab properties for you, but we can build out your office. We can buy your truck. We can buy the big equipment. So think of it as, jackhammers, yes, drywall, no. As far as other uses, anything for business expense is going to work. Rent, lease, mortgage for your commercial space, the build out, the furniture and the equipment, salaries, marketing, all of those things, unless you are a home-based business. If you are a home-based business, you cannot pay your rent, mortgage, or utilities out of these funds. We also have what's called the credit builder loan. This is much smaller. This is for up to $5,000, either for folks with no credit or who need a little help improving their credit. For folks who are just wanting to dipping their toe into entrepreneurship, you like washing cars, so you want to get a few things so you can do some detailing and see if you want to make that your full-time job. And then also if you have an existing business and need the money a little bit quicker for an emergency, like a pipe growing through, I'm sorry, a tree root growing through a pipe. So the terms on these are 1 to 2 years. The interest rate is at 9% and it does not require collateral, but of course it's encouraged. Other than that, everything is the same except for considerably lower fees with a $50 application fee and a $75 closing cost. Um, so those are the two loans we currently have. Occasionally we will get some other money and have different loans that might have different requirements. So generally what we're looking for is a thorough business plan showing that you have experience in the field or a mentor, a reasonable cash flow. We're going to look at your collateral and then reasonable credit. You'll notice here that there's not a number. What we're looking at is what you've been doing for the last 12 and really 12 to 24 months. Looking for things like missed payments at past due amounts. So if you know you've got those on your credit report, let us know ahead of time so that we can maybe work to mitigate those. There are two disqualifiers, however, and that's a bankruptcy within the last 24 months, and that means fully discharged within the last 24 months. And you can't have a tax debt without a payment plan. You can be approved for a loan with a tax debt, but we cannot close it until we see that payment plan. We're also looking at the general economic conditions for the venture. What that really means is this the right time and place for you to open your business? If you're opening up a pizza shop on a block with 6 pizza shops, you're going to have to convince us. If you're moving into an industry that's not popular where you are, you're going to have to convince us. And then your ability to repay the loan. If your business is not successful, can you hop back into the workforce because you are still going to have to pay back that loan? So the application documents that we are looking for, all of ours are online. Some folks have paper applications. So you want to talk to each individual group. But first is the client intake form. That's what allows us to start working with you for free. Second is the business loan application. That's where you're going to be making the ask, briefly describing your business and answering a few questions, as well as attaching all of the documents that we're going to go over in just a moment. Then there's the personal information supplement. That is anybody who owns 20% of the business will need to fill out, and that's about your personal finances. The required documents we need for all businesses are a business plan, 2 years of cash flow projections, 2 years of personal tax returns for anybody who owns 20% or more of the business, along with 3 months of their personal bank statements, and proof that your loan was turned down by another lender. And what that means is that they just have to have said no. So if you're a startup and you go to a bank and they say, we don't do startups, that's good enough. If you're not a startup, we're going to want to see your last 2 years of profit and loss statements, assuming you've been around that long, your most recent quarterly balance sheet, 2 years of business federal tax returns, and if they are on your personal, that's perfectly fine, and 3 months of corporate bank statements. Additionally, you can send in anything else that you think is relevant. Reference letters often help, but things like, licenses, leases, estimates, quotes, invoices, examples of work done, websites, marketing materials, anything like that that's going to help tell your story. So we accept applications through the second Friday of the month. Basically, once you fill out that client intake, you'll be assigned a staff member who will help you get all that together. We give you an answer by the end of the fourth week of the month. It says we determine the rate and amount of the loan, but honestly, we generally only fund full loans. The reason why that is because if you ask for 35,000 and we approve you for 20, we're setting you up for failure with $20,000 in debt. And then we'll get you a commitment letter, and generally it's 3 to 4 weeks from approval that you're getting the cash into your bank account. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, there are way more resources in Maryland than anywhere else for small businesses, and most of them are free. So you should take advantage of all of us. So there's us MCE, but most libraries have a business center. Most counties have a local economic development organization and a chamber of commerce. You want to check with your state, especially the Department of Commerce and the SBA for the federal government. The Maryland Small Business Development Center is an SBA program where you can get a free mentor. Same thing with the SCORE program. Also, talk to your local universities and colleges. Even if you didn't go there, they're there to help small businesses in the community. There's classes looking for internship and project opportunities. Some of them have women's business centers, some of them have small business centers or veteran business centers. You don't know unless you ask. And then your local business organization. So your downtown partnership, if you're in a Main Street, your local Main Street, your small business development center, if you're in Baltimore City, your rotaries, anything like that. And then I like to close my presentations with 5 things to remember when you're applying for business capital or starting a business in general. Number one, you need to keep that day job until you've got the money coming in to support yourself. Number two, you really need an accountant, really, even if you are an accountant, so that when you are in the weeds, you're not missing any deadlines. Number three, you're already doing, ask for help. You come to this class, keep it up. Ask us all the questions. We are here for you. Number four, keep your money in the bank if you're applying for a loan. So if you're going for a business loan, they're checking your personal credit. So it's not the time to be buying a house, opening credit cards, or buying a car, of course, unless you absolutely have to. And then the no business is an island. Folks go to small businesses because they're part of the local community. So be a part of your local community. Give the local charities, join your chamber or your Rotary. Make sure that folks understand that you are one of them. You are part of their community. And then they'll want to come to your shop or take advantage of your services. And with that, I'll open it up for any final questions. But here on the screen are some upcoming webinars, including the next 2 parts of this series. We've got the Veteran Small Business Workshop on the 14th, Instagram on the 20th, and then Storytelling and Media Exposure from the WBC in June. So with that, are there any questions? I always think of my best questions when these things end. So this is my email address, nrudolph@marylandcapital.org. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you can just feel free to email me. Um, and with that, I will say thank you all for participating. I look forward to next week when we talk about the business plans and cash flows. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening.